You're not having a midlife crisis, the identity shift that nobody is talking about. So, have you ever found yourself thinking, I should just be more grateful and not so frustrated? Maybe you're feeling disconnected from decades of building families, keeping a marriage together, taking care of children, and maybe you feel God is shifting you to something different, but you just can't figure out what it is. So if you've ever felt that way, here's what I want you to know. You are not having a crisis. You are not going crazy. You are not ungrateful. You are having the most profound identity shift that you've ever had. So, today I'm going to talk about this framework that I have created called the carrier through the reckoning and to the commissioning. Big words, I know. But I want to talk about this because I think it's like the elephant in the room, right? We need to start naming what women in midlife are actually experiencing, what we're feeling, and really what's going on. And that's why I created this framework, because I personally went through a carrier season, and I know you did too. And I'm going to talk about that in a bit. I had a reckoning moment, and I've stepped into what I now call my commissioning. And so I want to be able to help the faith fueled midlife woman over 50 who's feeling this confusion, frustration, maybe even fatigue, this guilt, right? And restlessness and uncertainty about what is actually coming next. And so remember, you want to stay till the end of the video, because I'm going to actually give you a great exercise that you're going to love, and it's going to help you a lot if you are experiencing this frustration and this restlessness. And remember, as I do every single week, I give you the Midlife CEO resource of the week, and those are loaded into my vault. You can access them. They're totally free, but I put a lot of time and effort into this resource every week because I really want to help you on this journey. So if you're new here, Christine Burke, I am the Midlife CEO, and I lead faith-fueled midlife women over 50 to stop underestimating their value, the value that they have, the skills that they have from lived experience, how to reclaim authority and turn that lived experience into purpose-driven impact and income. Here on this channel, I like to talk about midlife reinvention, talk about personal branding and movement making, talking about faith-led leadership, and basically building what you are called to lead. Okay, let's dive into it. So the first part of this transitioning that we go through from carrier to reckoning to commissioning, it starts with the carrier season. And I've named this carrier season for obvious reasons. And if you're a mom, you know exactly what I'm talking about. We go through a season of being a carrier. And if you ever want to look up the Proverbs 31 woman, I like to base my whole business plan on him. But when I really dove deep in the Proverbs 31 women, I was amazed at how this woman is basically us. She is the woman who was a good wife. She was a servant mother. And she, at that latter season of her life, she moved into the marketplace. She built wealth. She was business savvy. She invested. She owned property. It's really cool. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. So, the carrier season, we went through a season of being the go to for everyone, right? What exactly did we carry, right? We carried children, literally, physically, we carried children. We carried responsibilities. We carried aging parents. We carried budgets. We carried, children, the raising of children, and all that's involved with that. We carried family traditions. We carried the, relationships and the health of relationships. We carried everyone else's emotions. And that's the thing that that I remember the most is being the emotional yoke for everyone in the family, the relationships that are going on between you and your spouse, the relationships that are going on between your children, the relationships that are going on between you and your children. It was a lot. You become the helper, the solver, the planner, the doer, the stabilizer, the negotiator, the contract manager, the multitasker. I mean, we did it all. And it was funny. Last night, my 20-year-old was getting ready to go. He coaches football locally here. And he's like, Mom, where's my, insert the blank? Mom, where's my gray bag? Have you seen my gray bag anywhere? And of course, I went, duh. Right, we were in the garage. You just got home from the gym. You had your bag, then you picked up your phone and you made a phone call. You probably put your bag down. It's probably in the garage. Right, you are, Mom. I can't remember what he said, like, you're so smart. Thanks, Mom. I love you. And at that moment, I just thought, it's so nice to be told by your 20-year-old son that he loves you, of course. And then secondly, I am the Google of this house. Like, I may need glasses, but I basically know where everything is at all times. So for decades, this becomes our identity, right? Because that's what we are supposed to do. I truly believe that we were called by God to be in our homes, to be that carrier, even though it feels heavy. But God doesn't give assignments always that are light and comfortable. That's not his job. And that's not what we're here for, right? But we absorb that identity. It becomes who we are. And when we start moving out of that phase in life, it can feel uncomfortable, kind of like a crisis. And this happens, the season changes. Many women don't know how to identify themselves, so they don't know how to express who they are and what they do outside of this carrier phase, like this carrier identity. So I remember the moment where I had this reckoning. So my eldest son went away to school. My middle son went overseas to work. Now I have a daughter who's still at home, and raising daughters, we can just do a training for another day just on that. But I remember that moment where it was this intersection of pride, because I, so incredibly proud of, what my kids are doing, sadness because they were leaving. And I was thinking, well, what am I going to do with all this nurturing energy I have? What am I going to do with all this like everyday love and Google, finding things? And then on the other hand, I felt space and I felt opportunity, and I almost felt like I could breathe. And that was a reckoning for me because I realized that there is room to move now. There is room on the other side. There's space and time to be able to step into something new. But it's painful. It is bittersweet because we are so full of love for our children. And it's not about not loving your children anymore, but it's that carrying mentality in practice and everything we do from day to day, the mental and emotional space that it takes up, right? And again, this is why it feels a little bit like a crisis. So second part is the midlife identity shift. Now, remember, I'm actually going to do like I do every week. I'm going to give you a resource. I call it the Midlife CEO Resource of the Week. Those are all loaded into a vault. They're totally free. You can access that with the link below. And I'm going to take you through a couple of questions that are really going to help you clarify what's going on for you. It's actually quite an in-depth, like it's a 9-page resource I got for you. But also at the end of this video, I'm going to leave you with 2 or 3 questions that I think you're going to find super valuable. On to the midlife identity shift part. This is where it gets exciting. Okay, part 2 is the identity shift. So this is where things start to shift. This is where things get a little bit exciting. So one day things start to feel different, right? That's the reckoning. The kids don't need you in the same way. Your priorities start to shift. Time starts to open up for you. Your energy might even change, right? You might even start to breathe. And suddenly you start asking different questions, right? Who am I now? What do I actually want? Right? If you ever really asked yourself, like, we want peace, we want joy, we want healthy relationships, but outside of that, like, what do you actually want? What is the end goal for you? Well, like, what's the big dream fulfilled for you? What do you actually want? What matters most to you now? And the question I like is, what does God want me to do right now? That was the first question I started to ask myself during this identity shift. What does he actually want me to do right now? And this is where a lot of Christian women get stuck, because sometimes we feel guilty, right? We think that the Bible tells us that, the love of money is evil, and it's not you're not being a good Christian if you're, striving to achieve, and um you should be content with what you have. You should be grateful with what you have. But at the same time, you're feeling restless. You're feeling maybe a little bit of frustration, and you feel like you're being pulled in a new direction. Hello, you are. He is laying the breadcrumbs for you to step into what I call the commissioning. And by the way, gratitude and calling, gratitude and working to build God's kingdom, and gratitude and the desire to make income and impact, that those can coexist, by the way. Okay? There's no need to feel guilty. That is the means of exchange that he actually created. And I really don't think that he wants us to just sit on our behinds and do nothing. So the midlife crisis narrative is not what God would call it, right? He knows you're not in crisis mode. He knows that. That's a cultural name that it's been given, right? Partly because we don't really understand what a woman goes through, and that's why I'm talking about it. Hello. We don't fully understand this transition that women go through. Heck, I mean, we hardly have decent information on menopause, which is what kicks off the whole process, mentally, physically, spiritually, everything. It's such a huge transition. And the confusion you feel is actually, I believe, separation. It's God separating you from that identity as a carrier, okay, into your commissioning, your higher calling. And he's about to reveal what you're called to next. But we need to get obedient and lean in and actually get into, I'm looking for my Bible, get into the word every day so that we can actually start hearing what he is saying to us. And if you're thinking to yourself right now, oh my gosh, this is exactly where I'm at, I want more, I want to dive deeper, then you need to get the Midlife CEO Resource of the Week, which I mentioned. It's down below in the comments. And that is loaded in one special place, the vault, and you can access all the resources that I create every single week. Here's another thought. Okay. What if it's not ambition? So one of the biggest fears I hear from Christian women is that, what if this is selfish? What if this is just me being too ambitious, or I'm chasing fame, or I'm chasing too much significance or idolatry? Why can't I just be content? These are really great questions. And I totally understand it because, I've struggled myself with, how I want to be now that I'm a Christian. How do I actually want to show up online? So I totally get that. I've totally wrestled with that issue too. So, but what if, okay? What if we've just misunderstood the invitation? What if the desire to build something, it isn't ego? Maybe the desire to write a book isn't ego. Maybe the desire to teach and train, like I'm doing right now, isn't ego. Maybe the desire to mentor in business or, in whatever you do, maybe that isn't ego. Maybe wanting to build more income and impact isn't ego? But what if what you've been calling ambition is actually stewardship? So, what if God has been preparing you this whole time with the challenges you've walked through, what you've lived through, what you've built, what you've survived, the skills you've built, every lesson you've learned, every scar that you have healed? What if that is God's preparation for you? It's definitely not random. Okay, I promised you something practical. So here's a quick reflection exercise. This is very simple, okay? It's not complicated, but none of this stuff really is complicated. It really just requires some quiet, like quiet the mind, quiet the cortisol, right? Take a breath, go to somewhere comfortable where no distractions are happening, okay? And answer these two questions. Now, remember, the resource that I've given you is actually really good. I'm not going to lie. It's a full blown, like 8-page, exercise that you can go through, and it will really help you clarify where he wants you to go next. So grab a notebook and a pen. Go find a little quiet spot and answer these 3 questions. Number 1, what role have I been carrying for the last decade? Question number 2, what feels different about this season? So what's feeling different for you right now? Like for you, right? Not for your kids, not for your spouse, not for your parents. What's feeling different for you? Separate, like I feel different because my son's left. No. What's different for you as an individual? Number 3, what keeps pulling at my heart even though I've tried to ignore it? Very powerful question, because he literally legit trying to get through to you. Okay. But you got to open your Bibles, ladies. You got to get into the word. You got to give yourself the time and space, the quiet to sit so that you can actually hear. So don't forget to go to the resource area, the Midlife CEO resource of the week. Such a long word. It's actually not a word. Anyway, make sure you go to the vault and access all of the things that I'm creating every single week. There's tools, reflection prompts, checklists. I think I created a Facebook profile checklist last week. Really, really good. I guarantee you there's some things on there that you're probably missing, but it's all aimed at you, the woman over 50, your midlife, you're faith fueled, you're either an entrepreneur or you're wanting to kick off your commissioning. The other thing I have to mention is that if you are watching this and you're like, well, I already have a business, or I'm already a coach, or, I have a on the ground, storefront kind of business, or I sell a product, or I'm a network marketer, but I'm just starting to feel in the season like, is this for me? Right? So you're feeling a pivot come on. I totally get it. I've pivoted multiple times over the last 5 years. It's crazy, but it's okay, because this part, the second act part, we got to get this right, right? We got to get this right. We got to we need to get this part right. This is our second act, and we have a lot more time than I think we realize in order to do that, to fulfill God's commissioning on our lives. So if you are that person, you've already got a business going on, I have something called the CEO alignment audit. Okay. And that's where I'm going to get my eyeballs on all your stuff. I've been in business for 15 years. I've been on social media for just as long, selling things, coaching, having channels go viral, all that kind of stuff. Okay. And sometimes, well, all the time, it's really valuable to have somebody look at your blind spots, the things that you're not seeing. And I'll tell you what, there are some things that I see women do on Facebook, and it's free, y'all. It's a free channel. And there's many of you out there, and you're just not taking advantage of the very simple things that you could be doing in order to bring in more sales. Okay. So this is where I do a full-fledged review of everything, your offers, pricing, your messaging, your positioning, all of it. Okay. It's called the CEO alignment audit, and you can get details for that below. Okay. So I'm going to leave you with this. Maybe you're not lost. Okay. In fact, I know you're not lost. You are between assignments, very likely. Maybe God is separating your identity from what you carried so that he can actually hand you and reveal what you're meant to carry next. And so remember, you are not behind, you're not too old, you're not too late. You are building from lived experience and the wisdom that you have built, that you have earned from years of being a carrier. Today's keyword is commissioned. So if this resonated with you, drop the keyword commissioned below. And I want to know, like, where are you in this process? Are you like blowing up your life to move closer to God? Are you just kickstarting a business? Are you in that space where you're dreaming and you're thinking about all the different options that are available to you now? I want to know where you're at. I'd love to hear from you. So remember, grab your CEO alignment audit. Definitely grab the Midlife resource of the week, and we'll see you next time.